Every single mainstream car manufacturer is delving into the world of EVs, and while some are adapting existing models, some are plowing ahead and creating brand new cars from the ground up. Kia has already had the e-Niro and the Soul EV, but is now delving even further into the EV world with this, the brand new EV6. At its core, the EV6 is built on the same platform as the Ioniq 5, this kind of skateboard design with a huge battery and the motor sitting front and rear if you've got the all-wheel drive version. There's a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery, but sits nice and low in there. Kia says that the EV6 defies categorization, and there is some truth to that because it has the wheelbase of a 7-seater, but these small front and rear overhangs kind of bring the size back into line. It's not quite as tall as an SUV, but it doesn't quite feel like a crossover either. It's a car that is the shape it can be to accommodate the things it needs to have, and just happens to end up looking quite handsome indeed. There'll be various specs of EV6 available, from an entry-level model, GT Line S, and then a GT model to follow. This is essentially the GT line, although it's a pre-production model and some details may change. But where some of this gloss black and here around the sides, that might be on the entry-level chrome, this here looks brilliant. The slab-sided bonnet, which is very short but very wide, gives it quite an imposing face, and right here up on the nose, big, bold, the brand new Kia logo, which I think is a huge improvement. And that silver badge on this matte silver bonnet just looks absolutely incredible. The kind of faux grille effect, these little plastic trims here, still give it that authentic car feeling. It doesn't feel like a spaceship, but it does look incredible. And these DRLs are absolutely gorgeous. You're going to recognize this thing in your rearview mirror way before anything else on the road. It does make it feel a very big presence. This front angle makes the car look absolutely massive. It belies how tight it can actually come around the side. These wheel arches here bulge up so close to the front because of the short front overhang. These bulges feel like they're just menacing and coming forward. It's a very impressive look indeed. It won't be to everyone's taste, but it makes a bold statement. The side profile is where the EV6 calms down a little bit and presents probably its most handsome side. But the proportions still feel a little bit odd. Hopefully with me standing next to it, you get more of a sense of scale, but the wheelbase really is incredibly long. You kind of see it in how they've had to extend the doors. So this line up here and how long the top of this door is, massively long. What that translates to is excellent legroom in the rear. Now the belt line of this car is a lot lower than you think. It's a lot more deceptively low. It doesn't have that really high SUV or even crossover feel. It feels relatively low to the ground. The shape of it almost starts to look like an estate car, and that is by no means a bad thing. The look is handsome. The aggressiveness of these wheel arches at the front tones down into something that's a bit more understated. It is exceptionally helped by this matte silver paint job, which is absolutely gorgeous. And the flow all the way to the back, raised up on these 20-inch wheels. These wheels will be an option on the GT Line S version. The GT Line and the entry level will come with 19-inch wheels. It does look great on these huge rims though. The rear roofline here is exceptionally handsome, and while not quite as unconventional as other parts of the car, it gives it that same sporty, aggressive look that we get on cars like the Taycan Cross Turismo. It's a really nice look that just finishes off the line of this car. It is an incredibly handsome shape, and while futuristic, it doesn't feel like you've taken too much of a leap, but it does feel like a car that is one step beyond contemporary. When you come around the rear, the EV6 kind of changes character all over again. And that kind of elongated nature is then belied by this not quite hatchback, not quite crossover, but very blunt and steep drop off right here. That short rear overhang gives it a very different character to how every other angle looks. The rear well, the show is stolen by this side-to-side light bar that encompasses a spoiler lip right here as well. It's wonderful integration of it. It feels like a blade just cutting into the back of the car there, shielding over that massive Kia logo. It looks different enough. It has a different kind of aggression to what the front has, and different again to the kind of the longer elegance of the side. Feels like no matter what angle you see this car from, it takes on a slightly different character. When we get to here, we've got the cover for the charging port, where Kia and the EV6 have a party trick. By connecting this device, the vehicle to load, into the charging port like that, we can expose inside a household 3-pin socket. You can use the battery underpinning the EV6 to power normal devices. You could power a kettle or a television or a washing machine or whatever you've dragged with you on your journey. I'm not going to judge. Plug it in there and you can run it for as long as a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery will make it last. We've seen that kind of feature on American trucks like the Ford F-150 Lightning, but to see it on a car that's available on our shores is a nice little touch. The interior of the EV6 continues that idea of it being just that slight step more futuristic than any cars that are out there. The materials being used are all an effort to be more sustainable. So the plastics are all made from reconstructed plastic bottles, which is brilliant. And the leather is vegan leather. And tell you what, if they hadn't told me, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The center is dominated by this floating console. Because of the batteries allow it to have such a flat floor, you can have all this space, no need for a transmission tunnel underneath. There's quite a sizable box down here that you could keep a handbag or something similar in, or even larger bottles of water. And it also prevents anything that's dropped on the floor over here from rolling under your brake pedal, which would obviously be less than pleasant. The EV button is angled right at the driver, kind of giving you that sense that this is for you. Plenty of cubby holes and space and wireless charging up front here. And this rotary dial here is for selecting gear. It has this wonderful springy action to it, nice and weighted. And the knurling around the outside it's plastic, but it still feels nice. It's not quite that Bentley level of tactility you get from switches, but it's a step in that direction. It feels quite nice to use. The steering wheel is lovely and compact, and not adding too much complexity, is old-fashioned manually adjustable, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's certainly a lot quicker than anything powered, and you can get it exactly where you need it. It also has real physical buttons on it. That's actually a bit of a theme throughout the whole cabin. There's a nice balance between things that you operate through the touchscreen and things that you can actually control with physical buttons. All of these are really tactile switches that have actual response when you press them. None of this kind of swipe over, which you can accidentally touch. There's flappy paddles on the back. Being an EV, these obviously don't shift gear, but they change the regen braking character of the car. There's a drive mode selector switch, which is a slightly odd position for it, I must say, down here. But changing the drive mode with this also changes the color of interior lights. This is a pre-production model, so we aren't able to see it fully working yet, but these little light strips around here, apparently when you shift into the more aggressive driving modes, are meant to light up in more aggressive colors. That balance of some things being touchscreen, some things being physical buttons is continued over here on this bar here. There are two ways of configuring it. Right now it's set up for HVAC control, so I can see the temperature and the fan speed in the car, and these dials adjust the temperature for the individual zones, but pressing this button flicks it over to a whole new set of modes. And now these two dials do something completely different. Whereas before you could make it warmer or colder, now that's the volume for your stereo. It's nice to have an actual dial for your volume as opposed to hunting for a button. Unfortunately though, it has to be in the right mode, so you might find yourself either turning up the radio when you're too hot or accidentally making yourself freeze when you're trying to make the music get softer. But it is a nice touch. This screen feels like it's just printed on here, and just a press makes you realize, it was actually a digital screen the whole time. The instrument cluster is a fully digital screen on this curved single item which encompasses the infotainment screen right here. This symmetrical parallel screens look fantastic. The resolution is brilliant. We've got the brightness cranked up now and it looks vivid. And this is a pre-production model, but the responsiveness is already quite impressive. Obviously it comes with things like Apple CarPlay, which is the first thing I always look for in a car's interior and its infotainment system. And as soon as it has that, I know I'm going to be fine. But the inbuilt system is very smooth, very crisp, and has all the bells and whistles that you'd want from a modern car. The legroom in the rear is brilliant because of that long wheelbase. You're able to get fully grown adults in there without any problem whatsoever. There's USB ports built into the back of these chairs as well, so you can charge your devices on the go. And this unique design of headrest gives you a slight lump, which I like to use as a little handle to grab onto, but I've been told actually works as a coat hanger. Now, when you do hit that EV button and the car starts up, well, what can you expect in terms of performance? That 77.4 kilowatt hour battery supplies the rear wheel drive version of the car with 226 brake horsepower and a range of 316 miles. If you opt for the all-wheel drive model, the power goes up to 321 and range drops to 300. There will be a GT version available of the car later on at 577 brake horsepower. Acceleration in the entry-level car will be modest by EV standards, getting you to 60 in just over 7 seconds, but the fully spec'd GT model will hopefully get you there in sub 4 and possibly as little as 3.5 seconds. Pricing for the entry-level EV6 starts at just over £40,000 and will go all the way up to around £58,000 for a fully spec'd EV6 GT. Kia has proven to be pretty good at offering cars at a price that puts them up against things that are significantly more pricey, but with like a 7-year warranty built in. This does exactly that. There are more expensive and more luxurious and potentially quicker EVs on the market, but when you factor in the price of the EV6, it starts to look like a very compelling deal. And the battery being on its own 7-year warranty gives you that peace of mind. The only thing missing right now is driving the car, and we'll hopefully get to do that later in the year. And when we do, we'll give you a full comprehensive review of the car. But for now, it's looking very promising indeed.
Mm-hmm.